Where do you want to go?
Bowling.
Let's go! If you have a child that responds to stop, that's always a good one to throw out there before you help them, guide them back to where they were seated. We just want to be careful if a client is running or a child is running that we're not pulling by the arm, right? That puts a lot of pressure on the joints. It can not be the safest way to guide them back. And other approaches to do as well is, if they're sitting, it's positional, making sure that you're positionally in a good spot to block. So if you know that your child really likes water and there's water behind you and you're sitting at a table, you can make sure you're between them and where they might run to, whether it's a door, the front door, or a fun activity around them. And that way you can kind of stand up and have them ask first. If you have a child who loves to be chased, yes, I know that they're out there, right? A lot of kids just love that. Something that you can do is make sure that they're still able to get that in more of a structured way. So have them request, hey, chase me, making sure that you're giving them opportunities to be chased at different parts of the day where it's more safe, and you can just make sure that you're in a place where they're not gonna run too far away, maybe your backyard, but they can kind of get out those fun feelings of being chased. Wherever they're running to, they might be really excited to get to. They might not be quite happy where they're sitting. They might be running from less desired activity or a task. They might be running towards whatever fun they're running towards. They might be kind of looking to get that big reaction from the other person who's in the room with them. So if they're running out the door, right, a lot of times we're like, oh no, and that frantic, they might find that hilarious, right? So it might be partly for that, what we call more of that attention component. They might also just love running. A lot of our kids love that sensory input of running. So again, providing them ways that they can do that still, but more in a safe space. But if they're running towards things, we want to ask them where they're going, and have them ask. If it's more of a sensory component, allowing them to have a time where they can run freely. If they're running from the task, right, we can have them request to be all done and really work on some of those functional communication skills. You want to have some of those proactive strategies and reactive strategies. So if we're able to block and prompt them, great, awesome, but sometimes they're just too fast, right? They take off. Something that you can do is you can guide them all the way back and have them ask again and then allow them access. You can have a multitude of consequences, what you feel is appropriate for your child. Maybe they don't get access to going to that area that they want until they show you that they can walk safely somewhere else. Maybe you go in with, maybe they hold your hand, you work on holding hands without eloping, and then you work on them standing next to you and not holding hands without eloping. Some proactive strategies, right, is if the individual is looking like they're gonna elope, right, we can block, we can remind them, hey, let me know if you want to get up and go, and we can. So those are some tips there. Know that it's going to take a while to feel very confident in what you're doing. You learn so much when you start your career as a behavior analyst. You're going to work with so many different kids, and they're all going to have just different individualized components to treatment that you kind of have to navigate. Know that it's such a rewarding job, and I'm sure you're already been in the field if you are a behavior analyst because you've had to do your practicum experience. But I would definitely give yourself grace, collaborate with the parents. That's so important to understand what they're seeing at home, and just really supporting your technicians. We look at a lot of those visual perception skills, and we use the client's unique, or not unique, but their interests, right? So You want to start with preferred items and see, hey, can they track those items? Can they visually track you moving those items and attend to it for a few seconds? That might be a starting point and an ending point, right? Might be them navigating through their AAC device, because usually there's different folders that you have to navigate. There's a lot of different icons that they can select. But there's a lot of different strategies getting there, right? We might work on attending with puzzles or other visual perception skills to just kind of increase their time of looking at them. So when a child is newly diagnosed, a lot of times in their diagnostic evaluation, they'll give some recommendations too. Those are extremely helpful. A lot of times there's information on there for when they get into school, their IEP, other services, not including ABA, but also OT, PT is recommended, physical therapy, occupational therapy, or speech therapy. I recommend touring different facilities, so that's huge. We offer tours here. We encourage the child to come in and kind of see this environment to make sure it's going to be a good fit for you and your family. You want to ask the right questions, and that's something that we provide during our tours too, is a tour questionnaire. So if you're touring other ABA facilities too, these are the questions we would ask, just being experts in the field. While you're waiting for ABA services, because it sometimes can be a little bit of a lengthy process, I highly encourage getting plugged in with those other services like occupational therapy and speech therapy and physical therapy if it's recommended.
How can they kind of coordinate with the IEP team? Let's say they're on the wait list for ABA services.
Sometimes even waiting for ABA services, they can still do parent trainings. They can do an authorization for that if you're open to it, and they can help support you during those IEP meetings. Just to make sure that, you know, everyone's kind of on the same page, you feel supported, and maybe give some suggestions, or if the IEP team is asking the BCBA for suggestions, it's just an opportunity to collaborate. Something else while you're waiting for services, right? Communication is huge, and whatever that looks like for that learner. So maybe if we're not pointing yet, we're just pointing. If we're hand leading, okay, maybe we're going now to having them point before they get the item. Just really encouraging that communication and having that more as the expectation will really help that learner know that's what they need to do to communicate with others, and you see that communication kind of take off or at least increase. So.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that like happens in the clinic and that we teach in the clinic needs to be reinforced at home irregardless. So you can also just start with informing yourself on what ABA is, how it's applied, and see what of those pieces you can kind of put into your home life even before you start those services.
But I was wrong. I felt the same way when I was new in the field with, oh, well, if that child has any vocal verbal language, if they're talking at all, we should really just focus on that. In speech path, there's lots of research that supports having the child learn different communication forms is just going to help develop their language. So sign language is great if your child has that fine motor capacity to do some of those signs. That's a great way, and you can always still model that vocal verbal language. So if you're doing, you know, more please, right? You verbally say that whatever they're requesting for. So if they're saying all done, you would say it with that all done, and if they say it vocal verbally and not with a sign, we would always honor it, right? Sign language is very, very helpful for a lot of our kiddos, so. And narrating. So for some of those kids that are on the cusp or even nonverbal, sometimes just narrating what they're doing. So maybe they're playing with a doll and they're brushing their hair and you're like, wow, you're brushing the hair. So you're just consistently pairing that language with her.
Even if you're like your kiddo's requesting for like juice, for example, but they don't get the full word juice out, they just get maybe like juice. like to try and appreciate, recognize, acknowledge that attempt and be like, oh, juice, you want juice. And so to kind of encourage that communication can be a really great way to just, I mean, everyone likes to be appreciated, and that makes you want to work harder, you know?
Yes, and just meeting them where they're at and just slowly trying to work towards maybe that desired response. Speech pathologists are the ones who put in that request through insurance. They can either do that if they're a school SLP or for private insurance, or not private insurance, but private SLP services. They do a certain assessment to make sure that it is a good fit for the client. So with any mode of communication, like we talked about sign language, right? You have to have some fine motor skills. You probably need to have some imitation skills, so someone can teach you how to do sign language. And same with the AAC, right? You have to be able to attend to a lot of different pictures and kind of navigate that. So there's a few different prerequisite skills that they look at to make sure before investing in an iPad or a tablet for the system that it's going to be beneficial for that child. So collaboration is key, right? We lean on some of the speech paths a lot on, how to navigate the AAC in ABA therapy, but a lot of times we heavily work on that communication, whatever mode that is. So if a client is using an AAC and it's brand new, we might do a lot more modeling. So if they're going up to the trampoline, we might model, oh, you're going on the trampoline. Mm-hmm. And then we might, physically prompt the child to click trampoline as well. If they're open to it, if they're resistant to pointing, we're just going to keep modeling and, showing them where that's at in the AAC device and what it sounds like. And usually with the AAC, if you click on an icon, it also will say the word, and then you can model it too. People learn different skills differently, right? You're using different parts of your brain. We might use picture icons to teach a kid to communicate. We might use gestures, vocal verbal language, or again, that AAC device. Each one of those impacts different, they're navigating different things with their brain, right? So one kid might catch on to one of them better than others. I will say that sign language is heavily used in, I think, special education in general. And then, if a kid can get to it, something else that's beneficial with sign language is that, again, you can teach them. It's very hard to teach vocal verbal language because you can't prompt them to say things, right? So with sign language, you don't have to carry anything around with you. It doesn't have to be charged. You don't have to make specific icons. You use your hands, right? And your hands are with you all the time. Some things that behavior analysts work on, having good routines. We can kind of talk through what to do if they wake up and some suggestions there. However, I would look for like a physician support too with the lack of sleep. I know that there are other interventions that can be put into place that we are not competent to prescribe or state, and we're not necessarily experts. Having a really good, consistent routine leading up to bed is really important. So whether you're using visuals to show like a checklist or going over what they're doing. I know that there's research to support not using screens so close to bedtime. Usually doing something that's really calming for that individual, right? I know reading a book seems to be a top one, or giving a bath or warm water.
Go through a checklist to make sure all their needs are met. Like, did they go to the bathroom? Did they have a snack? Did they have water? Did they do any other things that are more specific to your child? Did they do all of these things? Because something might be missing and they might not know, and then their body's freaking out, and it's just telling them that.
Because I can't tell you how many kids are just hangry sometimes,
right?
Too. Like they just need a snack, guys.
Yeah.
Wherever they're sleeping, right? Trying not to make that room so distracting and overwhelming, right? We should have You know, if you are able to just have that room for sleep, that's best. I know that that's not always the case, right? But if they have toys, that the toys are kind of put away and the distractions are limited, because those things will help a lot too.
Also, earplugs. I don't know, like, I know sometimes if you wear like the noise canceling headphones like to bed, like it might not be good for your head, but like earplugs sometimes really help, because even just like the sound of nothing can be too loud sometimes, which probably sounds ridiculous if you don't understand what I'm talking about. But if your kiddo is overstimulated and they are noise sensitive, if their nervous system is like kind of shot, then they might be even more sensitive to the sound of nothing. So putting some kind of like earplugs or something for if they want that can be really great. I know I've done that a couple times and it's knocked me right out. So
if you're working on not co-sleeping, right, and a kid wakes up in the middle of the night, I know it's hard, but if you can walk that child back to their room, or you make sure that they fall asleep in the place that they're planning to sleep all night, can be beneficial, versus maybe your kid falls asleep somewhere and then you carry them into the room. If they wake up, that can be very startling and alarming and awake the system. Bubbles are probably the one thing that most every child loves. You also have clients that sometimes pairing looks like you give them some space. So you have to read a lot of those nonverbal cues with that child and realizing what they're enjoying. So people that have already worked for that child with that child for a long time, and we do this with parents when we go through the intake process, is we try to learn, what does that child absolutely love, right? You're building a therapeutic relationship, so building that rapport and whatever that looks like for you and that child is really important. Please be goofy, have fun. If you're having fun, they're more likely to have fun. And if they're open to that engagement, really make all of those engagement pieces really fulfilling. It's very individualized. Water play, different sensory toys could be helpful for that learner too. Some of those pieces that we look at the most are some of those sensory pieces for our clients, right? We see a lot of those behaviors that might just be sensory driven. Sometimes running is one of those. I know some kids I see that are just in overdrive, they're not regulating, so I might partner with an OT on a brushing program, or they give us tips on when and how to use a weighted vest. Other things is just understanding. Like, you guys have such a specialty in the area that fine motor and different aspects of that sensory regulation. Out of all the medical professionals that work with children, for whatever reason, I see the most OTs not like ABA. So just knowing how we are working towards, and we do have that assent based to make sure that the client is wanting to assent to whatever we're doing, and we heavily focus on some of those reinforcement pieces to just better support the child. Know that we're open to collaborating, and we really want that. I think that it takes a village for these kids to support them. It takes the parents, it takes resources for the parents, it takes the occupational therapist, the speech path, the BCBA, the special education teacher, to all work together to know that we can make the biggest impact if we are all working together. We have a school readiness program here where we kind of take that child and we help bridge the gap from going on a one-on-one to using that group code and then transitioning into a school setting. So during that process, we have IEP team members come out and observe the child here. And then we have meetings with the parents, talk about a game plan, help support that IEP process. And then when they start school, we love to do observations, continue to have that open dialogue with the teachers. A lot of times we might use token boards or visual schedules, or there's just different aspects of our therapy that has really helped. Like, I have And a client who started the school readiness program and vocal stemmed really loud. Well, we turned on music in the background and we were able to do that for like 2 weeks, and then he didn't need it anymore. And then he was not disruptive, very successful attending. So just small tips and tricks like that can be so helpful to share to the school team.